You know, people ask me all the time why I care so much. And the honest to God reason is because the United States is the greatest country on the face of the planet. Or at least it was. You see, that's the problem. We're living through the period of history. My generation is. Many of you baby boomers out there that remember what America used to be. In fact, I always find it interesting that it's actually the baby boomer segment that is most interested in the content that we put out. In fact, that's primarily our demographic, between 35 to 65, in that range, but heavily concentrated. Why is that? Why does the younger generation not seem to be interested in anything to do with the country? I mean, it takes a Boston bombing, literally, to bring people out of their Kim Kardashian hibernation to care to even look at the news, which those of us in the mainstream and alternative media try to capitalize. We try to do our best to capitalize on that interest when it happens, unfortunately, due to tragic events and due to false flag stage terror attacks that are being implemented on the American people. But why do I care so much? Because I hear that from friends and family all the time, and the reason is there's nowhere else to go. You know, I have friends personally that actually have left the country. They've gone overseas because they see the United States in its collapse, and they see it developing into a Gestapo, SS-style police state. It's fairly obvious to those of us paying attention that have any understanding of common sense or history. Again, don't take my word for it, just look at the historical precedent. Anytime there's a concentration of power in one direction and there isn't a balance of power, which is how the United States was set up, that's why we have branches of government which are really no longer in use. President Barack Obama invades countries like Libya. He bypasses Congress on a number of levels. He is likely to do that, in my opinion, will be doing that in the very near future with the Second Amendment. And isn't that absolutely amazing, but also terrifying at the same time? You know, you look at the Constitution, how this country was set up, and literally, Amendment number 1 is the freedom of speech. And after that comes the Second Amendment, our right to bear arms and form well-regulated militias. Those are the two things that this administration actually is going after. I mean, literally, we can just start crossing them off the list. Amendment number 1 and Amendment number 2. CISPA, SOPA, freedom of speech, you're now labeled a terrorist if you are an American traditionalist, someone that actually values the Constitution and is sworn an oath to serve and protect from enemies, both foreign and domestic. You are now the enemy. You are the terrorist. It's like the new communist. You know, it was communism before McCarthyism. It was very much a witch hunt, politically motivated. Now the same thing's happening here in the United States, but it's terrorism that we're fighting. But not terrorism overseas anymore. It's now domestic terrorism, because you see there's been a fundamental transformation taking place over the past few years, courtesy of the Obama administration, courtesy of presidents before him. George W. Bush, just as guilty. He has a bloody hand in the cookie jar just as much as President Barack Obama, but we have never seen such a violent shift in the foundation and the very principles that established this country in the first place. You know, I've mentioned many times before that honestly Benjamin Franklin and our founding fathers would be thrown in jail by the Obama administration if they were alive today. They'd be waterboarded over in Gitmo. Remember Gitmo, the place President Barack Obama promised to close down, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago? Still open. Still open. Again, actions speak louder than words. You see, that's the problem, and that's why I care so much. That's why I give a shit, because there is no better place than America. If there was another place, honestly, to go, and it had more freedom than the United States, I'd probably be on the next flight over, although reluctantly. But that's not the case. We are the freest of the lands. You know, we came over here on boats where 9 out of 10 of us died on the way over, and then we got here and 9 out of 10 died of starvation or disease or any other kind of ailment that we can't even relate to in today's modern society and modern world. But that's the point. The Obama regime, and Obama himself, who's the king of community organizing, who's a follower of people like Saul Alinsky, you should read his book, Rules for Radicals. I certainly have. This is all part of the program, is transitioning what the liberal left perceives to be
honestly an archaic view of the world. The constitutional principles in the foundation of this country is an archaic view according to these people. You know, and I hate to digress into the two-party paradigm because that's a bunch of bullshit too. There is no left-right paradigm anymore. In my opinion, it's just a single notion and it's a single idea of tyranny. Again, I have many friends that have left the country because they realize how dangerous it is to exercise the freedom of speech. Now, how dangerous it is to own guns, which is amazing because it's the First and Second Amendment of the Constitution. Again, just scratch it off, get your ink pen out. But that's why I care so much. That's why I make these videos, because this is the greatest country, or at least it was, on the face of the planet. And it's worth fighting for. It's worth raising our voices. It's worth doing something positive, sounding the alarm bells, having our Paul Revere moment. It's worth it. And, you know, it's not to say that things aren't changing into a certain regard and that technology is, you know, reshaping the world and we have to move on with the times to a certain extent, but we can certainly do that. But we can still hold true to our foundational principles, the principles of our republic, the principles of our Constitution. But these people in power don't want it that way. They want a radical shift. They want to transform, which they've done actually very well, and pulled the wool over the eyes of the great majority of the people who are for this transformation don't even know it. We've gone from capitalism to now socialism, many would argue, including myself, a fascist political system. Or again, you're the enemy now. Terrorism is the new communism. We very much have a McCarthy-style witch hunt that is taking shape and taking root here in America as I delivered this video to you. And it's what makes living in this country incredibly dangerous in this period of history. Because this is the equivalent of the modern-day fall of Rome. This is the equivalent of the collapse of the USSR, former Soviet Union. Now we're living through this collapse here in the United States. And we see it on all levels, whether or not it's financial, it's the U.S. dollar losing its world reserve currency status, or these wars and this positioning and this chess game that is taking place overseas. But again, as an American, I still feel it's worth it to speak up. I still feel that it's worth protecting this country, raising our voices. Because again, in my opinion, this is and was the best country in the world, the most free of all the lands. Whether or not it's for business or our capitalist roots or our right to bear arms and form militias to protect against a tyrannical government or our freedom of speech. These are fundamental, amazing, beautiful principles that have allowed the United States to really, in my opinion, be the greatest place on the face of the planet over the past 230 plus years. The problem is that's changing. And we must raise our voices. We must let the world know, and we must let our politicians know that we're not going to have it. Again, if our founding fathers were here today, if they were here, they would be labeled terrorists. They would be labeled radicals. But the only terrorists and the only radicals are the ones in the White House, are the ones using and abusing us, Wall Street. Not everybody, but a good portion of these people. Through massive bailouts, through excessive debt, through 0% interest rate, through erroneous wars, through confrontation overseas, and now an attack on the First and Second Amendment. Number 1 and number 2. That's what we're dealing with. You know, I ask you, our audience, constantly to share our content, to share our videos out into the world, but I ask you to do more than that. More than just get the message out. You have to act on these principles. You have to call your congressmen. You have to protest in the streets. You have to think differently. You need to put these ideas into action. And our voices need to be heard. Because we, the people, in uniform together, holding hands, go from a single individual and a single person and a single idea to a massive force that cannot and will not be reckoned with. It's what founded the United States of America. Coming out of the bushes, bootstrapping from nothing, taking risk, fighting off the redcoats. That's what built this country. Guns, whether you like it or not, was founded under God, and it was founded as a republic with constitutional principles in mind. These are things that we should and will, hopefully, hold these people accountable for. The United States of America, the greatest country on the planet, worth fighting for. Many have died for her. So that I could stand here today, and I could stand here, and I've been able to stand here for about 4 years now, and deliver the truth, to deliver an impassioned message to the people, to vocalize my opinion, to exercise my freedom of speech, maybe when people don't even agree with it. You know, that's the great thing about our country. You can hate what your neighbor's opinion is. You can hate what they have to say. You can hate their and despise their politics. You can hate their religion. You can not like what they decide to do for employment, how they live their life. But that's not up to you. That's what this country is about, freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and the ability to protect that from enemies, both foreign and domestic. You never forget that, America, both foreign and domestic. Who's our greatest and what is the greatest threat to this country and our foundation and our constitutional principles today? You need to answer that question. And if you come to the same conclusion that I have, that millions of us have, not just here in the States but around the world, then you must stand up for her. You must fight for her in any way that you know how, in any way that is humanly possible. Please help us. Please join our cause. Please spread the message of liberty. Share this video. Get all of our videos out to the world. And help us protect something worth fighting for. I'm Christopher Green. You've been watching Green Wave TV, alternative media television. And I just delivered the Daily Wave. Hard-hitting and in your face.